think we all feel different ways about where we come from time to time. When it comes to the place where we spend our formative years, we kind of love and hate it. Many people think that Don Henley, the famous lead singer of the Eagles and one of the richest drummers in history, finally told the truth about the woman who had captured his heart like no other. Henley has had a long and successful career, with many hits and romantic successes. The honest statement of Henley sheds new light on his long-lasting passion. This strange woman was the one who had the most profound effect on his life and gave birth to some of Henley's most famous songs. It's making a lot of noise that Henley has found love, but who is this woman? Come with us as we look into the love story that moved Don Henley beyond fame, money, and fame, the fairy tale prince of the 1970s. People know Donald Hugh Henley as a famous American singer and one of the founders of the rock band Eagles. He has also written some of the most popular songs ever. With a net worth of over $250 million, the Grammy winner is thought to be one of the richest musicians in the world. But being successful didn't mean it was simple to find love. It wasn't as lucky for Henley in love as it was for his work. In fact, it was his rise to fame that led to the scandals and painful love affairs that defined his career. Henley's charm swept them off their feet as he went from one stunning star to the next. Soon they fell in love, and a story of love that would soon come to an end began. Over 17 female stars are said to have been in relationships with Don Henley that didn't work out. But there was one that didn't follow any rules. It was Henley's one and only true love. But Henley was such a big deal that it was easy for people to love him. Fans, not just female stars. How did Don Henley, who used to live in a small town, become so famous? She was born in Gilmer, Texas, and grew up in Linden, a small town in northeast Texas. Henley went to Linden Kildare High School for high school. He played football there at first, but his teacher told him to quit because he was too small. Henley quit in the end and joined the high school band, where he played trombone at first and then moved on to drums. Henley joined his first band around this time. Elmer Bowden, the father of his childhood friend Richard Bowden, asked him to join a Dixieland band he had put together with Jerry Surratt, another school friend. The band was called the Four Speeds. The band changed its name to Felicity in 1964 and had a lot of different members. As Felicity, they worked with a local artist and put out a song by Henley, Pennsylvania called Hurtin'. His high school diploma came out in 1965, and he was accepted to Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, but he went to North Texas State University in Denton from 1967 to 1969. He later quit school to be with his dying father. In 1969, Henley's band, Felicity, met Kenny Rogers by chance. Rogers became interested in the band. After that, they changed their name to Shiloh and recorded a few songs for Rogers. Their first hit, Jennifer, Oh My Lady, was one of those songs. Surratt, a member of their band and a close friend, died in a dirt bike accident right before their single came out. Henley, Richard Bowden, Michael Bowden, Al Perkins, and Jim Ed Norman, who are all his cousins, joined the band at that point. Rogers helped get the band signed to Amos Records, and in June 1970, he brought the band to Los Angeles. At Larrabee Studios, Rogers made their self-titled album, which they worked on while living at Rogers' house for a few months. Shiloh broke up in 1971 because of problems with the band's leadership and creative differences between Henley and Bowden. Henley met Glenn Frey in Los Angeles because they were both signed to the same record company. The two were asked by John Boylan to be in Linda Ronstadt's backup band for her 1971 tour. Going on tour with her was what made Henley and Frey decide to start their own band. Randy Meisner and Bernie Leadon joined them. Both of them had played in Ronstadt's last band. After that, the Eagles were born. They would go on to become the best band of all time. This is the band that made Don Henley. When it comes to accomplishments, the Eagles' story is jam-packed with them. The Eagles are one of the most important American bands of all time. They were formed in 1971. Their easygoing California sound, which they perfected in the 1970s, can still be heard on classic rock radio and in new rock and country acts. Over 150 million albums have been sold around the world by the Eagles since they started. They have also won 6 #1 albums, 5 #1 songs, and 17 top 40 singles. It's not all that simple. The Eagles are the best-selling American band of all time. They were admitted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988. But there's more to their story than just the great things they did. The Eagles released their self-titled debut album in 1972. It included songs like Take It Easy and Witchy Woman, which became classic rock and roll hits. The band was signed to David Geffen's Asylum Records and consisted of singer-guitarist Glenn Frey, singer-drummer Don Henley, guitarist Bernie Leadon, and bassist Randy Meisner. But it was clear that the record had country and folk influences. In Los Angeles in the late 1960s, country rock was an option to the Eagles before they recorded. After they recorded it, it became the music for the lives of millions of rock kids in the 1970s. These kids were interested in the present but wary of glam rock and disco, so they wore suede jackets and faded jeans to try to live the California dream in a traditional American way. The band went into more detail with these textures on their 1973 follow-up, Desperado. They even played a cowboy in the cover photo by Henry Diltz. Best of My Love, from their 1974 record On the Border, was their first #1 song. It also made it possible for guitarist Don Felder to join the band who played on the album. By 1975, when One of These Nights came out, Felder was a full-fledged Eagles member, and Leadon was becoming unhappy with how the band was moving away from country and folk music and toward a louder rock sound. By the end of the Eagles tour One of These Nights, Leadon had left the nest, and Joe Walsh, the proudly odd lead singer for the James Band, took over on guitar. The Eagles were at the height of their popularity as 1976 drew near, and their greatest hits quickly became a must-have record. Because of how well the record did, the RIAA made the Platinum Award for selling 1 million copies. Once Walsh and Felder joined the band on guitars, they started working on Hotel California, which became their best-selling album and came out at the end of 1976. Hotel California by the band was their best work in this way. Songwriting is an important part of the Eagles' style, as it is for any country singer. Their music started with intricate tunes sung by Henley and Frey with a nasal tone. Sets with drums that were much more forward than what Nashville producers would have allowed began in a harsh rock style with some rustic touches. By the time they started working on Hotel California, they had added Walsh, a guitarist who used to be in the James Gang. Walsh brought both technical know-how and a wild personality to the group. Hotel California became the band's signature song, with Henley's creepy vocals setting the mood and Walsh and Felder's fierce guitar battle at the end. Felder came up with the idea for the song that Henley, Frey, and Felder wrote. Henley told Rolling Stone that Felder had sent in a cassette tape with about 6 different pieces of music. Before that one, none of them made me feel anything. I remember thinking, this could work, I believe this can lead to a fun project. However, the Eagles were slowly falling apart, even though Hotel California was a big hit in 1976 and the tour that followed. It may come as a surprise to learn that the group is known for both its hits and the fact that its members leave and join often. John Frey and Henley. They were the tough guys in the group and wrote most of the songs, sometimes with writers like J.D. Souther and Jackson Browne. Other members had to follow their lead. Meisner, the bassist, was tired and quit the band in 1977 after getting into a fight with Frey over refusing to play his song, Take It to the Limit. Timothy Schmidt took Meisner's place, and the group went into the studio to record The Long Run, which would be the Eagles' last album in the 1970s and would take 18 months to finish. It was supposed to be a double record at first. But the band members couldn't come up with enough songs. Others thought it was a letdown because it wasn't as good as Hotel California, but it was still a big commercial success. It was #1 on the charts and sold 7 million copies. It also had 3 songs that made the top 10. On November 10th, 1979, Heartache Tonight was their last song to make it to the top of the Hot 100. I can't tell you why, and the title track both made it to #8. Heartache Tonight won the band their 4th Grammy. In the City by Walsh and The Sad Cafe became important parts of live music. During this time, the band also made 2 Christmas songs, Funky New Year and Please Come Home for Christmas. The latter was released as a single in 1978 and peaked at #18 on the charts. Frey, Henley, and Schmidt all sang background vocals on Boz Scaggs' single Look What You've Done to Me. Long Beach, California had what has been called the Long Night at Wrong Beach on July 31st, 1980, when people lost their cool. Tensions in the band finally reached a boiling point when Felder, still angry that the pair took his vocals off of Victim of Love on Hotel California and replaced them with Henley's, didn't want the band to play a political fundraiser for Alan Cranston, a Democrat from California. Felder and Frey made threats to each other on stage at the Long Beach show between songs. History of the Eagles, Alison Elwood's great 2013 documentary, records the sound of the fight and what happened afterward. The last show by the Eagles was over. On paper, it looked like the Eagles were no longer together and that no one would ever hear from them again. But for Don Henley, this was just the beginning. He was able to handle things on his own. He wasn't going to let the band's fight stop him from achieving his goals, what Don Henley left behind. Henley sold more than 10 million albums around the world as a solo act. He also had 8 top 40 singles and won 2 Grammys and 5 MTV Video Music Awards. Rolling Stone magazine ranked him as the 87th best singer of all time, and Music Radar called him one of the best singing drummers of all time. During the East Texas Music Awards event in 2015, Henley was also given the Lifetime Achievement Award. His solo work, which brought his talent to more people's attention, began in the 1980s as a singer-songwriter who became less obvious. By the early 2000s, he had become a legendary musician. Don Henley and Stevie Nicks worked together on her top 10 pop and adult contemporary hit Leather, and Lace Nicks wrote the song in late 1982 for Waylon Jennings and his wife, Jessie Coulter. I Can't Stand Still, Henley's first record as a solo artist, didn't sell very well. With sales of more than 1 million copies in the US, the song Dirty Laundry was certified gold. It peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 at the start of 1983. It was Henley's biggest solo hit song of all time, and it was also up for a Grammy Award. Henley also sang Love Rules on the music for the 1982 movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High. After this came the album Building the Perfect Beast in 1984. In the same way that the Eagles did in the 1970s, Henley embraced the styles of his time. For example, on the 1984 Boys of Summer Smash, he looked down at electropop. The song got to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. Several MTV Video Music Awards, including Best Video of the Year, were given to the music video for the song by Jean-Baptiste Mondino. His performance on the song also earned him a Grammy Award for Best Male Rock Vocal Performance. On the Hot 100, All She Wants to Do Is Dance reached number 9, Not Enough Love in the World reached number 34, and Sunset Grill reached number 22. Many radio stations played these songs a lot. Then, What Do You Own? From the Color of Money record was a number 3 album rock chart hit for him. Even more people bought Henley's next record, The End of the Innocents 1989. The title track of the record, which was written with Bruce Hornsby, was a number 8 hit as a single. Songs like The Heart of the Matter, The Last Worthless Evening, and New York Minute were played on the radio. Still another Grammy, this time for The End of the Innocents, which he got for Best Male Rock Vocal Performance. In 1990, he also did a short show on MTV's Unplugged series. Henley released the song The Garden of Allah around the middle of the 1990s to promote Actual Miles, his most popular solo album. At this point in time, the Eagles came back to cast a shadow over Henley's rising success. It got a lot of attention during this time that Don Henley had been in a legal fight with Geffen Records for years. Henley tried to get out of his deal by pointing to a California law from the 1960s that says entertainment contracts can only last for 7 years. He wanted to make more money by printing with EMI. Geffen Records sued Henley for $30 million for breach of contract, saying he owed them 2 new albums and a collection of his best songs. The fight ended when the Eagles got back together, and Geffen got a big cut of the money made from the reunion record. Everyone thought the Eagles band was long gone, so when they got back together, it made a huge stir. It was 1994, which was 14 years after they broke up. How were they going to stand up again? Even though the music business is always changing, Frey, Henley, Walsh, Felder, and Schmidt got back together for the 1994 live album Hell Freezes Over. The album's name comes from the fact that the band swore they would never get back together again until Hell Freezes Over. After the record came out, the Eagles also went on a tour that was a huge hit. The group's nostalgic but still musically exciting reunion tour and record, which had 4 new songs, did even better than expected. The record and tour were such big hits that the band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1998. Meisner and Ledden, 2 former members, played with the band. Sadly, this didn't lead to a big break for the band. Since This Is the Eagles, drama soon followed. Henley continued to make music on his own while all of this was going on. Inside Job, his first album by himself, reached number 7 on the Billboard 200. It had the new songs Taking You Home, Everything Is Different, Now Workin' It, and For My Wedding. Felder was fired from the Eagles in 2001. He sued the band for firing him unfairly, but the case was eventually settled without going to court. There was still hope, though. In 2007, the band got back together. After Felder left, the group kept going with its 4 main players. In the same year, the Eagles put out Long Road Out of Eden, a double album with all new songs. It was their first record of all new songs in almost 30 years. Both critics and fans loved it, and the record also showed that the group wasn't going to follow the usual way of making and distributing music. The album came out on the Eagles' own record label, and in North America you could only get it at Walmart shops and on the Eagles' official website. I Dreamed There Was No War in 2009. The band's 2-part documentary, History of the Eagles, came out in 2013. It was based on a song from Long Road Out of Eden. Henley didn't make a new album for a long time, so he worked on a lot of different projects, such as duets with Kenny Rogers and Reba McEntire, Patti Smith, Trisha Yearwood, and Roger Waters, and solo work with Alison Krauss. With never-ending energy and success, the Eagles band also kept touring all the time. That is, until Frey got sick. 16 years old, The Eagles looked like they were done for good again, but Frey's son Deacon and country singer-guitarist Vince Gill joined the group. Even though the Eagles' influence will never end, the band is still on the road with their farewell tour. Now we get to the good part of this video. While the Eagles' past has been rough and exciting, Don Henley's personal life was just as bad behind the scenes. The personal life of Don Henley. Don Henley has been romantically involved with many beautiful women from different fields such as fashion, comedy, and charity work. He had most of his relationships while he was working as a musician, and they were typical of the people he met in the music business. Lori Rodkin, an American jewelry artist and philanthropist, was one of his most well-known partners. Rodkin is famous for her own high-end jewelry line, and her work has been published in Vogue and Harper's Bazaar. In the fall of 1974, the road to Hotel California began, when Don Henley started dating the beautiful 22-year-old Lori Rodkin in a serious way. Not long after a painful breakup with actor Susanna Martin, which helped inspire The Best of My Love, Henley met Rodkin and fell deeply in love with her, but she refused to go on a date with him at first. Rodkin's heart was still hurting from the breakup of her engagement to Bernie Taupin, who wrote songs with Elton John. She didn't even know what instrument Henley played when she finally gave in and went on a date with him. He took the time to give her all of his records. Soon after, they bought sheets and pillows and moved into a house in Malibu together. But as Henley started living with a woman for the first time, some problems came up. He was too interested in chasing other women, which was a problem. Henley and his friend and co-worker JD Souther liked going out on the town at night. They knew they were two of the most successful and good-looking guys in Hollywood. At first, Rodkin didn't mind that Henley was seeing women, because he thought it was an important part of his artistic process. A lot of the time, a girl one of us had gone out with liked to think that the songs we wrote were about her, Henley said. Each song is a mix of other songs. All of my songs have parts of every girl I've ever been with. They're groups of people, like in fiction. There is no doubt that some of the meaner parts of Hotel California are about Lori Rodkin. Tiffany has a crazy mind. She was able to get the Mercedes. She has a lot of nice boys that she calls friends. That's about her. It's not like me to brag if I were Miss Rodkin. It seems to me that she's like Norma Desmond but younger. When Rodkin finally broke up with him, Henley didn't call her for almost a month. He told her he was excited about a new song he had written called Wasted Time. All signs point to Rodkin not being amused. Henley said it was kind of a goodbye song. He then told her that he had called because he wanted to get back together. Rodkin said it was not possible. She was already seeing Bernie Taupin, who used to be her fiancé. Henley also moved on quickly. He began dating Fleetwood Mac's Stevie Nicks at the end of 1975. Their relationship made the news. Henley had long admired Nicks and knew that the two bands were competing for the award for Best-Selling Record of the Year. One night, Henley called Nicks, even though the two had never met or talked before. They became friends, and over the next few heated phone calls, they talked about how lonely it is to be a long-distance rock star. Henley, who was still crazy about Rodkin, found a kindred spirit in Nicks, who had just broken up with Lindsey Buckingham. How much worse did things get for her? Being on stage with Henley every night, Nicks asked him. Both groups had to play in the same places. Mick Fleetwood, John and Christine McVie of the Mac, and Henley were going to show up backstage one night, so they decided to play a joke on Nicks. They sent her a bunch of flowers and a card signed by Henley that said, "The best of my love tonight, Don." Nicks was very angry at what she saw as Henley's haughtiness until he told her he had nothing to do with the joke. After that, they had a steady relationship for 2 years. Nicks thought of it this way: I started dating Don after Lindsey and I broke up because of rumors. He was cute and classy at the same time. I learned how to spend money from Don. It was clear that he didn't mean to do that. I saw him. He wouldn't mind if you bought that house or had a Learjet come pick you up. Nicks got pregnant in the end, and neither of them had any doubts that Henley was the father. Nicks quickly and quietly solved the problem that would have come up when she had an abortion in between tour dates. Friends say that Henley wasn't trying to force the issue, but she was very angry about how quickly and easily he agreed with her choice. Nicks thought Henley was telling her that he wasn't interested in making a major long-term move. Just like he always did, Henley played the perfect Southern gentleman at the start. Flowers, calls, and sweet words of love. Lear jets to Paris for fancy meals. In the end, he was far away, hard to reach, moody, argumentative, and hard to find. By now, everyone on the Eagles crew knew what was going to happen. It was like a running joke. Love him and liar him became Henley's favorite way to get someone to like him. After many years, Henley said this about his relationship with Nick. He said Nicks had given the future child the name Sarah before she had an abortion. Her next song, with the same name, was a huge hit, and Henley says she dedicated it to the spirit of the baby who had been brutally killed. In the end, they were together on and off for about 2 years. After that, Henley dated Lois Childs for 3 years. Childs is an actor, model, and Bond girl. He told the Houston Chronicle that they loved each other, but the relationship wasn't meant to last. It ended after 3 years. Childs said, "It wasn't working out. Even though we loved each other very, very much, I couldn't be who he needed me to be. And he couldn't be who I needed him to be," she said. "We were very close and loved and respected each other, so it was hard." In the early 1980s, Henley was engaged to Marin Jensen, who played a character on Battlestar Galactica. Jensen was the inspiration for his first solo record, I Can't Stand Still. She also sang harmony on the song Johnny Can't Read in 1985. Jensen was in Henley's music video for Not Enough Love in the World. Even though they were engaged, they broke up in 1986. But Jensen still helped her ex-boyfriend start the Walden Woods Project, a charity in the early 1990s. Before he met his wife, Sharon Summerall, the love of his life, Henley was in one more close relationship. Henley knew he had found the right person when he met Sharon Summerall in 1993. He was finally ready to settle down. There are often many turns in love stories before they reach their happy finish. Don Henley had to try a few times before he found the love of his life. Sharon Summerall, a beauty from Texas, won his heart. In 1995, Bruce Springsteen, Sting, Billy Joel, John Fogerty, Jackson Browne, Sheryl Crow, Glenn Frey, and Tony Bennett were among the famous people who came to the wedding. Someone who went even said the wedding was like a rock and roll hall of fame. Henley married model and socialite Sharon Summerall in 1995. For her, he wrote the song Everything Is Different Now from the record Inside Job. Sharon Summerall is more than just the famous musician's wife. She is also an interesting person with her own story. From her first days as a model to the hard times she had with her family, Summerall's journey in the famous world of modeling began in the early 1980s. She worked with top agencies like Ford Models, Evia Models, and Elite because she was so beautiful and sure of herself. She also walked on fashion shows in New York, Paris, and Milan because of how talented she was. But fate had something else in mind for her. In the early 1990s, Sharon was told she had multiple sclerosis, just as her career was taking off. People with multiple sclerosis have a difficult disease that affects their nervous system. For some, it meant she had to put her modeling dreams on hold. But Henley has been a loving husband to her for almost 28 years. Through it all, she is getting by and holding her own. The singer told the Mirror in 2008 that she has good weeks and bad weeks. Sharon is lucky to have the remitting form of MS, which means she can look forward to better times in the future. Henley and Summerall are very proud of their 3 kids, Will, Julia, and Annabelle. The couple moved to Texas to give their kids a more normal life because they wanted to raise their kids away from the fame of Hollywood. "That's how I wanted my kids to grow up, and family is the most important thing to us," Henley told the Mirror in an interview. "This is a better place to do it because my wife's parents are also involved," Henley said. At 77 years old, Henley is no longer the active young man or the glamorous star he used to be. He is now a father who wants to set a good example for his kids and use his own life to teach them a lesson. In the same way that his music is still relevant and inspiring to the music business today, the Eagles' legacy lives on as a reminder of the incredible band that once was. And what Eagles song do you most enjoy? Write something below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channels if you like the movie. Also, click on the next video that comes up. It will be fun for you.